At this moment, because Xiao Yi was injured, he was lying on a makeshift stone bed, leaning against the stone wall. Around him, there were only Senior Kingsong and Tiabai, and the other disciples had been temporarily dismissed. Senior Kingsong nodded slowly, his face solemn, and said, "So that person is the new Ghost King of the Demon Sect Ghost King Sect, indeed profound in his Tao." Tiabai frowned and asked, "How did you manage to infiltrate the Demon Sect?" Xiao Yi smiled and said, "At that time, I was ordered by my master to sneak into the empty Mulberry Mountain to investigate the movements of the Demon Sect. Indeed, I found that there were remnants of the blood refining hall of the Demon Sect operating there. However, after observing them secretly for some time, I found that these remnants of the blood refining hall were not formidable enemies, and not worth worrying about. They only mentioned how the Holy Sect was this and that many times, as if there were some secret major moves within the Demon Sect. I wanted to find out. So I used the alias Xiaozhou, and it just happened that they were in need of manpower at the time, so it was quite smooth for me to join the Demon Sect." He paused here, showing a hint of apology, and said to Tiabai, "However, Senior Tia, when junior brother Zhang and junior sister Luzweki fell into the Dead Spirit Abyss last year, I happened to be assigned to deal with the Tianyin Temple's Fashi senior brother and others elsewhere, and I was unable to rescue them in time. I feel quite sorry about it. Fortunately, junior brother Zhang was fortunate and unharmed, so I was relieved." Tiabai smiled and said, "It's nothing to blame you for. You don't have to worry about it." Senior Kingsong, who was listening on the side, suddenly snorted. Tiabai heard it but didn't pay him any attention. Senior Kingsong turned to Xiao Yi and said, "But come to think of it, Xiao Yi, your actions this time are indeed too risky. You should know that the villains of the Demon Sect are all cunning and deceitful. If anything goes wrong and you get hurt, I won't be able to explain to the sect master brother." Tiabai also nodded and said, "That's right. Before we descended the mountain this time, the sect master brother hadn't heard from you for months, and he was quite worried. He specifically instructed us to pay attention to your whereabouts." Xiao Yi's face darkened, shaking his head and saying, "Alas, it's all my fault for making my master worrying." Senior Kingsong smiled slightly and said, "You don't have to think too much about it. You have made great contributions this time. After we finish clearing out the remnants of the Demon Sect here, when we return to the mountain, the sect master brother will definitely not blame you. Perhaps he will even reward you heavily." Xiao Yi blushed and said, "Senior Kingsong, you're joking." Tiabai said lightly, "This is not a joke. Your contribution this time is indeed not small. But Xiao Yi, in the future, you must not do such dangerous things again. The sect master brother holds you in high regard. After he ascends to immortality and becomes an immortal, the position of sect master will most likely be passed on to you. By then, you will bear heavy responsibilities, so you must not act recklessly." Xiao Yi solemnly said, "Yes, thank you, Senior Kingsong and Senior Tia, for your guidance." Senior Kingsong nodded and said, "Well then, I see you're tired, so rest early. Fortunately, your injuries today did not affect your meridians, otherwise it would have been troublesome." Xiao Yi watched as Senior Kingsong and Tiabai got up and walked away. He also wanted to get up to see them off, but Tiabai stopped him and said, "You're injured. It's better to rest well. We're not in Qingyun Mountain now, so let's skip these formalities." Xiao Yi didn't want to go against his words, and coupled with his tiredness, he leaned back against the stone wall again and said, "Thank you to senior uncles. I won't see you off." Senior Kingsong waved his hand and walked away with Tiabai. Watching them almost reach the entrance of the cave, Xiao Yi suddenly heard a shout from behind him, "Senior Uncle Tia." Tiabai was taken aback, turned around, and said, "What is it?" Xiao Yi smiled as he sat against the stone wall and said, "I almost forgot. When I visited Senior Uncle Su Ru at Dezhou Peak last year, he mentioned wanting a big pearl from the southeastern coast as a specialty. It just so happened that I found one when I came to the East China Sea this time. Does Senior Uncle want to see it now?" Tiabai pondered for a moment, then looked at Xiao Yi and smiled. saying, "Oh, you didn't remind me. I almost forgot. Luckily, you remembered, or I would have been pestered by your senior uncle Su after I returned to Zhu Peak." With that, he laughed and went back. Senior Kingsong stayed in place for a moment, naturally not interested in this pearl matter, then walked away. In the cave, there were only Tia Bai and Xiao Yi left. Tia Bai smiled as he walked over, but when he sat down in front of Xiao Yi, the smile on his face disappeared. He glanced back slightly, then said lightly, "Your senior uncle Su has always been outwardly gentle, but inwardly strict. 100 years ago, she went to the East China Sea and found that so-called Big Pearl. Now, there's no one around. So if there's anything, you can speak freely." Xiao Yi nodded, looking at Tia Bai, and said, "Senior uncle is indeed insightful. I asked senior uncle to stay behind because I wanted to talk to you about Zhang Xiaofan, junior brother Zhang." Tia Bai frowned, slightly surprised, and asked, "What happened to him?" Xiao Yi coughed softly, deliberately lowering his voice. Tia Bai immediately leaned forward slightly, concentrating on listening. In the quiet cave, there was only the faint sound of low voices, echoing softly.